Every forecast we have made tonight is a gift in that sense. The 2040s settlement can be negotiated. The 2060s fire can be channeled. The 2090s inheritance can be prepared. The stars incline, they do not bind.
And I will close the council with the synthesis. Ancient technique gives us the lineages and the timing. Modern technique gives us the psyche and the collective. Quantum interpretation gives us the mathematics of resonance, entanglement, and the observer. Put them together and the century resolves into a shape, the 2020s and 2030s, the proving ground of the network. The 2040s, the great settlement. The 2050s, the audit. The 2060s, the fire arrows. The 2070s, the reordering. The 2080s, the consolidation. The 2090s, the inheritance. And 2100, the ignition.
4 voices, 1 sky, and 74 years on the table. I am Tariq Shah. This has been the Century of Stars. Our sources are the Omen tablets of Babylon, the decans of Egypt, the dashas of the Vedas, the midpoints and ingresses of the modern school, and a quantum framework that asks astrology to be worthy of the physics it borrows. We have debated, we have challenged, and we have delineated. The sky is not a sentence. It is a conversation, and this conversation, like the century, is only beginning.
Ava Chen here, and one last note before we go. The QRMA framework is a beginning, not a conclusion. If you are an astrologer, test it against your charts. If you are a physicist, test it against your equations. If you are neither, test it against your life. The century will not wait for us to agree. The planets are already moving. Thank you for listening, and may the stars incline gently in your favor.
And from the oldest chair at this table, when you look at the sky tonight, remember that every culture that ever watched it built a language for what it saw. The Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Indians, the Chinese, the Maya. We are the heirs of all their languages, and we are building one more. Keep watching, keep questioning, and keep the lineages alive.
This is Leo Marin, and my final word is this. The century will test every institution, every story, and every boundary we currently believe is permanent. Do not be afraid of the test. Be afraid of being unprepared for it. The astrology of 2027 to 2100 is not a prophecy of doom, it is a map of the work. Do the work, and we will see you in the sky.
Welcome back to the Century of Stars, Part 2 of the Council. I am Tariq Shah, and we have just mapped the skeleton of the century. The conjunctions, the outer planets, the long waves, the eclipses, and the decades. Now we go deeper. Maya, you promised us the decanal method. Open the cabinet.
The decans, yes. Each sign contains 3 decans of 10 degrees, and each decan has its own face, its own spirit, its own omen. The ancient Egyptians watched the heliacal rising of the decan stars and built the first star clocks. For the century forecast, the decanal method gives us precision inside a sign. Pluto spends 20 years in Aquarius, but it enters the second decan in 2033 and the third decan in 2038. Each decan is a different chapter of the same reign.
And that is the refinement the modern school calls secondary motion at the collective scale. Let me give you the decans of the century's great ingresses. Pluto in Aquarius, second decan from 2033. The institutional mutation deepens from networks to governance itself. Third decan from 2038. The ideals of the 2020s become the bureaucracies of the 2040s. Neptune in Aries, second decan from 2031. Third decan from 2036. The pioneer dream hardens into the frontier economy. The decans are the chapters within the chapters.
And the decans have a quantum analog, the fine structure of the spectrum. Each sign is an energy level, and each decan is a sub-level, split by the internal dynamics of the system. When a planet crosses from one decan to another, it is a small quantum jump, less dramatic than a sign change but far more numerous. The century is not 74 years of monotony, it is hundreds of small jumps inside the big ones. The fine structure is where the real predictions live.
Then let us talk about the Arabic parts, because they are the most neglected precision instrument in the modern cabinet, and I will defend them. The part of fortune is the most famous, the point where the moon's light and the sun's light meet in the chart. But there are hundreds of parts, and the part of catastrophe, the part of spirit, the part of victory, and the part of loss are all computed for national charts. When a slow transit crosses a national part, the ledger says, expect the event the part names.
And the parts are older than the Arabs, Tariq. The Babylonians computed the points of light and shadow for the king's chart. The part of the kingdom, the part of the army, the part of the harvest. In the world chart, the part of fortune of the Aries ingress has been remarkably accurate for the annual economic direction. I use it every March equinox, and I have for 20 years. It is not folklore, it is a formula.
And the formula is the reason the parts work, if they work. The part of fortune is the moon's elongation from the sun, projected onto the ecliptic. That is a phase relationship. The moon's illumination phase, frozen at the moment of birth. In quantum language, it is the phase of the lunar oscillator relative to the solar oscillator at the initial measurement. Every part is a phase observable of the system. And phase observables are conserved, which is why the parts keep their meaning across decades.
Now harmonics. The modern school, following John Addy in the 20th century, divides the circle by whole numbers. The second harmonic, the opposition. The third, the trine. The fourth, the square. The fifth, the quintile. The seventh, the septile. The ninth, the novel. Each harmonic is a family of angles that share a resonance. The seventh harmonic, the septile family, is the harmonic of fate, of the fated encounter, of karma. The ninth harmonic is the harmonic of vision and ideal.
And harmonics are literally harmonics, the Fourier decomposition of the chart. Every configuration of planets is a waveform on the circle, and the harmonics are its overtones. A chart with a strong seventh harmonic is a system vibrating at the seventh overtone of the cosmic drum. Leo, you said the septile is fate. I say it is the standing wave of the seventh mode. We are saying the same thing in two languages, and both are true.
Then let me use the harmonics on the century itself. The great conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn occur every 20 years, which is the sixth harmonic of the century. 5 conjunctions per century, including the nodes. The Saturn-Neptune cycle of 36 years is the harmonic of the generation, 3 meetings per century. The Pluto-Uranus cycle of 111 years is the harmonic of the Great Mutation, 1 meeting per century, and the last was 1966, the next is 2077. Circle 2077, the Pluto-Uranus conjunction in the 2070s, the reordering decade. That is a harmonic forecast.
And the Vedic tradition has its own harmonics, the Shodashavarga, the 16 divisional charts. The Navamsa, the 9th division, is the chart of the soul's purpose. The Dashamsa, the 10th, is the chart of action and career. The Chaturthamsha, the 4th, is the chart of home. For a nation, we cast the divisional charts of the founding moment and read the soul of the state. The American Navamsa, the soul of the Republic, is a document as real as the Constitution, and it is read the same way, with reverence and with argument.
And the fixed stars, which the modern school too often forgets, are the memory of the sky. The star Spica, at 24 degrees of Libra, is the star of the great gifts, the harvest, the patron, the protector. Regulus, at 0 degrees of Virgo in the modern tropical count, is the heart of the lion, the star of kings, of power, of the crown. When a slow planet crosses Regulus, the old texts say, a king rises or falls. Pluto crossed Regulus in the 1970s. The next great star contact of the century is Neptune reaching the Pleiades in the 2050s, and the Pleiades are the star of tears and of vision. Watch the 2050s for the great weeping and the great seeing.
The fixed stars are the one place where I defer entirely to the ancients, because the stars are the only objects in the chart that are actually fixed. They are the background lattice of the universe, the distant galaxies projected onto the ecliptic. When the slow planets pass over them, it is a coincidence between the foreground dynamics and the background structure. In quantum language, it is a coupling between the local system and the cosmic boundary condition. The stars are the boundary of the boundary.
Now let me raise the technique I love the most and that most astrologers fear. The electional chart, the chart of the chosen moment. Nations are born not only at their founding, but at their constitutions, their treaties, their currencies, their algorithms. The European Union was born at the